Good evening, everybody. Could we have silence, please? Just so you've got a coughing fit. Good evening, members, and welcome to the meeting of the full council. I'm Councillor Sue Wilson, the chairman of the council, and I will be chairing this meeting this evening, which is being held at the new Rick Stones Academy Theatre. I'd like to welcome all those in attendance this evening and also advise that this meeting is being webcast and will be broadcast via the council's YouTube channel. To ensure that all members can be heard and their contributions clearly captured for the webcast of this meeting, we have two governance officers who will hand a microphone to members when I invite them to speak. If members wish to speak, can you please raise your hand very clearly, and a governance officer will bring you the microphone. For your own safety and those around you, please remain seated while you speak. And for the safety of the officers walking around in the theatre, please don't place items in the vacant rows or on the stairs. Members, for this meeting, we will be voting by way of a show of hands. Therefore, members should clearly raise their hands when indicating their vote when called upon to do so. We have 3 hours only for this meeting, and I'd be very grateful if members could keep their speeches concise to ensure that we conclude this meeting within the time allocated. We're not expecting a fire alarm, however. In the event of an alarm, please leave via the fire exits and assemble in the car park. And can I also ask that you ensure that your mobile phones are switched off or silent? Thank you. Right. Thank you, members. I'll now proceed with the first item of business, agenda item number 1, apologies for absence. We have apologies from Councillor Mrs. Wendy Smith, Councillor David Hume, Councillor Iona Parker, Councillor David Mann, and Councillor Nick Unsworth, who clearly hasn't managed to get back from wherever he is. Is there any other apologies? No. I'll proceed now to item number 2, declarations of interest. Do any members have any disclosable pecuniary interest, other pecuniary interest, or non-pecuniary interest that they wish to declare this evening? If so, please can you state the item and the nature of your business? Thank you, Councillor Dervish. What's the daisy?
Thank you. Item number 4, question time. Mini nights is known to me.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Butland.
Also, public question time. Councillor Ross Playle is known to myself and I suspect nearly everyone in this chamber. So I'm very happy, if the monitoring officer is happy, that we make a declaration on behalf of all of us.
Happy with that, thank you. Councillor Weeks. Oh, sorry, wrong name. Councillor Sandon.
Thank you. Yeah, question time. One of the speakers, Catherine Hopkins, is known to me.
Councillor Abbott.
Thank you. During questions to Cabinet members, I intend to mention the Essex Climate Action Commission, of which I'm a member, MPI.
Thank you. Councillor Butland.
In that case, Madam Chairman, I declare an interest as a member of Essex County Council.
Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Can I also declare an interest as a member of Essex County Council?
Councillor Thorogood.
I'd like to declare that I'm a member of Essex County Council, and also with Catherine Hopkins, I have been involved in some email correspondence in regards to environmental matters in Kelvedon and Fearing. Thank you.
Councillor Sweer.
I'd just like to declare that I'm also Essex County Council as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? No? Is that a debate going on? Right. Thank you very much. Please can I have a proposer to approve the minutes as an accurate record of the extraordinary meeting of full council held on the 20th of September? Councillor Butland, and can I have a seconder?
Seconded.
Councillor Cunningham. The minutes have been moved and seconded as an accurate record. All those in favour, please indicate. Okay, thank you very much. The minutes were approved. I will now proceed to agenda item number 4, public question time. We have 4 registered speakers for this evening's meeting. All registered speakers have 3 minutes each to make their statements. At the end of each statement, I will ask the relevant Cabinet member to respond to the statement or to confirm that a written response will be given. The first speaker for this evening is Miss Emily Knight, who would like to make a statement to raise awareness of domestic violence. Miss Knight, would you like to? Thank you. And you have 3 minutes to make your statement, okay?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I would like to raise awareness of domestic violence within our local communities. Whilst I appreciate some councillors and Cabinet members and staff do work around this subject matter, I don't think that's enough. In order to really bring this home to you and for you to extend this work, I'm going to read you a statement I received from a survivor. I was confident, strong and very independent, a backbone to my family and a huge support to my friends, always there to listen and help wherever I can. After giving birth to our child, the abuse started to happen. He very slowly took control of my life and then the physical abuse began. Before long, he was the only person in my life and I no longer saw and very rarely got to speak to my friends. I was vulnerable and completely dependent upon him. After 18 months of abuse, after countless black eyes and bruising, a broken finger, and after being knocked unconscious for the 3rd time, I woke up from the floor and thought, no more. I finally gained the confidence and told him to leave my home or I'll call the police. He threatened to have my children taken away from me and that I would be the one who was arrested. I took my chances and got him out. To this day, I have never looked back. How long would it have been before he killed me or I took my own life? The only thing that stopped me from taking my life were my children. This survivor was lucky, but at the time of their abuse didn't know where to turn, and the police were not an option as she was embarrassed and scared. Every parish, town, district and county council need to do more to raise awareness and help more people to become survivors within their communities. Domestic abuse doesn't just happen at Christmas or when the football is on. It happens 24 hours every single day of the year. It doesn't matter what colour you vote for, what colour your skin is, what race, religion, gender, sexuality you are, or what age you are. It happens everywhere. Please can you come together as a council and help fund and support the awareness of domestic violence? I'm here to try and make a difference, and I hope that you can too.
Thank you very much, Ms Knight. Councillor Ricky, would you like to reply to the statement or give a written response?
I'd like to reply, if that's okay, Madam Chairman. Thank you, Ms Knight, for your statement. I would like to respond as Cabinet Member for Communities and also as Chair of the Braintree District Community Safety Partnership. I completely agree with you that we are all responsible for raising awareness of domestic abuse, and there is always more we can do. Braintree District Council is part of a community safety partnership which is comprised of partners including the police, fire, county council, health, probation service and others who look at key community safety issues and look to see how these can be improved. The partnership has identified tackling hidden harms, including domestic abuse, as one of its key priority areas of work. Some of the things the partnership is doing to tackle domestic abuse include offering J9 training for community groups, local businesses, schools, nurseries and statutory partners. Working with Essex County Council to commission domestic violence services, including refuge accommodation, promoting services available to victims and to raise awareness, and delivered stalking and harassment training. The partnership is currently planning for 16 days of action between the 25th of November and the 10th of December, where we will be raising awareness across the district. We also need to take a role in improving our own awareness and processes in terms of domestic abuse as a district council. You may be aware that the Domestic Abuse Bill has recently come into law, and to respond to this, we are reviewing how we support those affected by domestic abuse, including giving people a safe place to go or making their homes safer and making sure our housing policies support where they can, including investigating a specialist housing advisor to support those who are experiencing domestic abuse. We do have guidance for managers and staff about domestic abuse, and our housing teams have recently received updated training around how to recognise signs and how to help people to get access to the services they need. Domestic abuse is included within the council safeguarding policy, and we raise awareness with all staff, as any of us could be the first person that someone talks to when they have been a victim of domestic abuse. So we all need to know what to do. Only by working together, by empowering those who have experienced or who are experiencing domestic abuse, and by taking every opportunity to improve everyone's understanding, can we tackle domestic abuse. So I thank you for taking the time to come and ask this question to us tonight. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms Knight. That was great for your statement, and please return to your seat. You can go and sit at the back and then go up afterwards. And thank you, Councillor Rishi. I've got it right. I have actually been told last time I kept saying Councillor Ricky. I've always had a problem with it. But in Italy, two C's is a ch, so it's Richie. Got it right. Right, the next speaker is Miss Julie Fletcher, who would like to make a statement on agenda item 6. Motion by Councillor Tom Cunningham. Ms Fletcher, please come to the speakers table. You're already there. Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm already here.
And
sorry?
Sorry, I was just going to say Councillor Graham Butler would like to reply to the statement.
Okay, cheers. I'm going to speak about the motion that has been proposed by Councillor Tom Cunningham with regard to levelling up. To me, this motion seems to be wholly or substantially contrary to the Braintree District Council's constitution. Chapter 2 of the procedural rules state 12.17 motions. No motion shall be put unless it relates to a matter over which the council has power or which affects the council or the district. Is this motion even valid, as surely it's ultra vires, outside the legal powers remit of the council, and should be rejected on procedural grounds? I fail to see how this motion conforms to the rules and should never have been brought. It would appear that no one knows what exactly levelling up means. Even Mr. Gove, when questioned, merely replies, "There will be a white paper." I understand the white paper is due out later this month. Nonetheless, this motion exists, so what does it contain? A list of negatives, 9 bullet point statements of what must not happen in levelling up. The Conservative councillors are now concerned about the use of agricultural land, having previously allowed their pursuit of a pipe dream, the twice turned down garden communities, resulting in speculative developments, many of which are on this precious land, which is now no longer available to contribute to the feeding of the UK. Then they're concerned with the possible demise of large private companies, legislation concerning recreational drug taking, the weakening of the UK's defences, leaving NATO and our special relationship with the US, the banking system, control of immigration and taxation. And do you really believe that when it comes to house purchases, it's more important that houses are sold than the buyer's ability to pay the mortgages? Wasn't this sort of thing responsible for the 2008 bankers' crisis? Clearly, motions such as this belong in Parliament, if they belong anywhere, not district councils. If the Conservative majority on this council vote in favour of the motion, it will only serve to prove you're more interested in preserving the status quo and serving our national political party in its current form than the concerns of most who reside in this district. It will prove you have no real understanding of your role and your responsibilities as representatives of your electorate and the Braintree district as a whole. I'd add, I've actually lived within this district since 1972. So I've been here a long time. I therefore propose this motion swiftly finds its way to the nearest recycling bin, never to see the light of day again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Fletcher. Councillor Graham Butland, would you like to reply to the statement or give a written response?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And can I thank Ms. Julia Fletcher for her comments and also say it's the first time we've actually met, although a few months ago we had a very courteous exchange on social media when, although you lived in Coggleshaw, you took a keen interest in Finchingfield and in the County Council election, where I think, to be honest, if you had have been in Finchingfield, you would not have voted for me, but you probably would have voted for Mr. Staines, who is another regular on the Better Braintree Together Facebook. True, I know. And I know on the Facebook page you said this was the first time you've done it, and I'm not condescending. You did extremely well in terms of the way in which you put your arguments over. I'm going to leave it to the actual debate to take that forward. Clearly, I read your remarks on the Better Braintree Together website, which basically you have repeated tonight. And we can have a difference of opinion, but they were well put forward, and they were put forward in a very courteous manner. I wish I could say the same about the gentleman who advised you about whether it is a correct thing. That is not for us to decide, that is for the monitoring officer. But I was very upset at his comment that, and I will read it, are the people who proposed this motion in need of treatment for mental illness? And if so, how can they be given the help they needed? Madam Chairman, yesterday was World Mental Health Day. It could not have been a more inappropriate time to make derogatory remarks, not just about the people who moved the motion, but more particularly in a way that I think denigrates all people suffering from mental health. And I'm sure I speak for everyone in this chamber, including my colleague, the opposition, leader of the opposition, because he and I know that there are members in this chamber who suffer from mental health problems and have suffered. And it is a pity that social media allows statements like that to be made There is an administrator who should have stepped on that, but unfortunately, rather than do that, Mrs. Pearson decided to like that comment. I think that's disgraceful. I think it detracts from the genuine issues that Ms. Fletcher has put forward tonight. That should be the debate, not derogatory remarks. Can I thank Mrs. Fletcher for her comments, and I hope during the course of the debate she will see why we think it is relevant and the arguments are relevant to the district and in particular to the residents which she and I are members of.
Could I just say, I know I don't usually have any right to reply, but linked to obviously this mental health matter. As a teacher of more years than I can to remember, obviously now retired, I would agree with you 100%. Yes, comments that make suggestions about people's mental health are totally unacceptable, and I would never do something like that.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Fletcher, very much. If you'd like to go back to the seat, and thank you, Councillor Cunningham. The third speaker for this evening is Mr. Ross Playle, who would like to speak on an agenda item. No, forget I said that. Do you want to come to the table? And you have 3 minutes to make your statement.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. It is great to be able to welcome Braintree District Council to Witham today, and particularly to the County Council Division of Witham Northern, which I'm proud to represent. I know this is for social distancing purposes, but it is good to see councillors out and about across the district, and I really welcome that. By the same rule, it is vitally important that service delivery and improvements are made right across the Braintree district. I have lived in Witham all my life and have seen some of the positive changes the District Council has made to our town. One example, having learnt to swim at Brampton Sports Centre, as grateful I was for that opportunity, the building was tired and you were never quite sure what else was in the water. The new centre is modern, clean and bright, and investment is valued by residents. Some of the best advances forward have occurred when other levels of local government, such as the town and county, as well as the NHS, have come together to deliver real change for residents. A change high up residents' agenda is improvements to the town centre, and something I've been campaigning on for some time. No disrespect to those of you from other areas across the district, but I would like to ask the council this evening what future plans it has to level up the district's second town, but in my opinion, by no means second best.
Thank you. Okay. Right. Thank you, Mr. Playle. Councillor Tom Cunningham, would you like to reply to the statement or give a response?
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I'd just like to give a response now to Councillor Playle and thank him for his warm welcome to Witham. Circumstances we wouldn't have chosen, but it's great to be here, and it's great to see him in his role. With regard to the points he makes about investment in the town centre and in Witham in general, there have been a number of projects which Braintree District Council have been working on to deliver in Witham, and they include the town centre physical improvements, as well as being complemented by a series of events working with the town council and other partners to increase footfall. Long established plans to bring an enterprise centre to the town of Witham, work on a community centre, which Councillor Ritchie has been leading on, working with key stakeholders in the Witham community, and of course the very important objective of trying to do all that we can at Braintree District Council to help lever in better health facilities and address that deficit in this town. These projects have been working individually. The leader has given a clear direction that he would like these projects to come together to work towards a package of delivery for the whole of the town to demonstrate considerable investment in this town. And Cabinet colleagues will be working on that in the weeks ahead and will be updating our Witham Town District Council members and both county councils in due course. We'll be keeping them regularly updated on those, what I hope will be very exciting plans for the town of Witham moving forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Lovely. The fourth speaker for this evening is Catherine Hopkins, who would like to speak on agenda item number 6. Would you like to come to the table, Mrs. Hopkins? And you have 3 minutes to make your statement.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening, councillors. First, I would like to say thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. Supporting my local community and restoring wildlife locally is very important to me, so I was keen to see how the local government would interpret and support central government's levelling up agenda. I can honestly say I am heartily disappointed with this motion that has been put forward. Not one point relates to supporting or bringing forth ideas to improve our local community. Instead, it encourages debt over affordable homes, does not solve drug use and increased crime at its roots, and does not illustrate how, at a local level, green job opportunities can be delivered, which must be at the heart of the levelling up agenda for long-term relevance. Neither does the motion support or address DEFRA's 3-point scheme for farming, which covers local nature recovery, landscape recovery and sustainable farming, but instead rejects the changes that are so desperately needed. As we are inherently a rural farming community, setting out improvements to support jobs and bring new opportunities to revitalise our rural areas and help support our farmers should be paramount to our Levelling Up programme. We are, after all, more than just commuter towns and villages. It is the point 1 that I would like to concentrate on tonight. I'm in agreement that no fertile land should be used for anything other than food production. Not even new housing should be considered on fertile land, which locally is a rising cause for concern. But I disagree that intensive farmed land should not transition to other forms of farming methods or use. You mentioned regenerative farming as a negative, but it has many benefits over intensive farming, and these benefits far outweigh the possible, but not always slightly less yields that might occur. I must also highlight that it is well documented that we do not have issues with feeding the nation. As we are a trading country, I address this on a global level. The Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations estimates that globally we already produce enough food to feed the 10 million people predicted to inhabit our planet by 2050. What we do have, though, is a food waste and distribution problem, and producing more food will not solve any of these issues, only perpetuate them. I will not bore you this evening with the figures on food waste, but the point I'm trying to make is that there is room to transition our farming to green and more sustainable methods which promote biodiversity without taking food away from the mouths of people, whilst also supporting our climate change challenges. So my challenge to you is to tackle the food waste issues that local farmers may have, support farmers in transitioning to green and more sustainable practices, and support landowners in naturalising their land, which can open up new opportunities for our local communities through ecotourism, which is the fastest growing area in the travel sector. On a final note, referring to the last point on the motion regarding the monarchy, a sense of pride in our monarchy at local level will not come merely from their existence. It will come from standing alongside them, investing in the good work they promote in building a green and more sustainable future for our children and environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hopkins. Councillor Graham Botland, would you like to reply to the statement or give a written response?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I will reply to Ms Hopkins, if I may. I have to say, if Councillor Mrs Schmidt was here, who is the Cabinet Member for the Environment, I suspect she would be agreeing with a great deal of what you've said, and I don't disagree with much of what you've said. Had you been here at our last meeting when we discussed the climate change strategy, I think there are things in there which I think would please you. What we recognise is that fundamentally it's also about winning hearts and minds of people and actually changing lifestyle. And that is actually going to be quite a challenge for us. But in terms of the the non-environmental issues, if I can put that, I'll leave that to the debate that's taking place. But I'd be very happy, and I will make sure that I pass on to Councillor Mrs. Schmidt your comments, etc. And I'm sure she, through you, Madam Chairman, I'm sure she would like to come back to you and take up some of the points that you've raised.
Thank you, Ms. Hopkins, for your statement. You can go back to your seat now if you like. And thank you, Councillor Graham Butland. That statement actually concludes public question time. The public speakers of which they're very welcome to remain or not for the remainder of the evening. If you wish to remain, can you make your way to the top of the seats at the top? We'll now proceed to agenda item 5, announcements and statements from the chairman and the leader of the council. I will now make my announcements. It is with great sadness that I have to advise members of the death of a former district councillor, Mr. Fred Swallow. Fred Swallow was elected to Braintree District Council in 2007, and he served for one term of office until 2011, representing the Conservatives for Headingham and Maplestead Ward. Fred Swallow served on the Audit Committee, Licensing Committee, Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and the Halstead Local Committee. Fred Swallow was the Council's representative on the Braintree District Citizens Advice Bureau Management Board throughout his term of office. On behalf of the Council, I'd like to formally express our really sincere sympathy to Fred's family and to all his friends. I'm pleased to announce that I've started to conduct a series of visits to local businesses and community organisations within the district. And so far, I had a super morning at the Essex Gliding Club, not something I'd recommend if you're fairly broad across the beam because they're quite tiny to get into, but they are an amazing group of people and work really hard. The Steeple Bumpstead Neighbourhood Network, where I met Diane Garrett, who came along as well, which was great. The Witham Bendlow Charity and Shelford Village Magazine, the Meet and Greet, the Big Bear Cider Mill, and Emma Gooding came with me to that. That's an extraordinary place, which is just down the road from where I've lived for many, many years, and I didn't even know it was there. And Hearing Help Essex. And in fact, having been to that, we are now going to start another Hearing Help. It's for people, elderly people, to have their ears checked and to have their earpieces maintained and cleaned out and everything. A really good organisation. And they're based at St Michael's Hospital. And I think, Andrew, you do some work with them, don't you?
Yes, that's correct, Madam Chairman. I've been a volunteer with them for a couple of years now.
And I will now, and other things I've done, but I'll now invite Councillor Graham Butland, leader of the council, to make any announcements.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I don't have any announcements, but I do have, I want to say something tonight, which is almost the end, well, it is the end of an era. We bid farewell to two very long serving and loyal members of staff. And I want first of all to refer to Jo Albini, and I'm delighted to see Jo is here. I think she officially finished on the 30th of September, so she's here in her own time, but I'm delighted to see Jo. Jo, this is the embarrassing bit where people will start adding up what years are and making guesses, but you joined us in August 1982 as a housing trainee and developed through the various housing roles whilst training for a professional qualification for the Institute of Housing, and has remained with us for over 39 years in Braintree District Council. She became a Principal Housing Advisory Officer at the age of 25, and by that time had gained experience in a range of housing areas, including estates management, development of tenants associations, and management of staff. She led our housing team through one of the most complex periods in its history when we transferred our housing stock to what was then Greenfields in the early 2000s. Jo also played a crucial role in that transfer, not just making sure that everything happened as it should, but also keeping the housing service running and supporting the team through that significant period of change. Not just supporting the team, but of course, by supporting the team, supporting the residents who needed those services. Following the transfer, Jo became head of housing and later housing and community. And the nature of that service means there's been almost continual change since that time. She's also been instrumental in delivering a number of important housing projects in the district that have improved access to housing options for those who really need it, including new directions, the foyer, Digby Court, the Women's Refuge, just to name a few. On a personal note, Jo, I would like to say thank you for what I thought were intractable problems that came to me from individuals. And when I listened to the problems confronting those individuals, there was just one name that came to mind. I'll have to get in touch with Jo because Jo will know what to do. And tonight there will be many, many people in this district who will be grateful for the help and support that Jo and her team provided in what for them would have been their darkest hours. So I'm absolutely delighted to put on record the thanks of the council to Jo Albini for a sterling service to the council, but more importantly, to the residents of this district. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Butland. I think Councillor Bowers would like to say something.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I concur with the comments that Councillor Butland's just made, and in my role of as Cabinet Member for Housing, I can only reinforce those comments and thank Jo for the unfaltering support that she has given me over the last 2.5 years as I've been in the role as the Cabinet Member responsible for housing. And I must say, especially over the last 18 months that have produced challenges like none of us have experienced before. And this has been felt probably as strongly in the housing team as probably any other within the council. Under Jo's leadership, our already well-revered housing team have risen to those new challenges and continue to do so, which is a credit to Jo and one example of the legacy that Jo will leave this authority following her 38 years of dedicated service. She's always given her all to our residents, and the reputation we have in Essex for our work with the homeless and rough sleepers is another example of why we've been so lucky to have Jo at the helm of housing for so many years. I've always found Jo approachable, accessible and supportive of me and all members when the need arose, whether that be supporting within any individual cases, working with partners or keeping members updated in the workings of the housing service. Personally, I would like to wish Jo all the very best in a very healthy and happy retirement and thank her for all the support, compassion and sheer devotion to her work at BDC. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Abbott, did you want to say something?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. I won't add or repeat much to that, but just to thank Jo on behalf of the GNI group and residents, indeed, that's who we serve, for such an exceptionally long time representing this district, and all the best for the future.
Thank you. Councillor Pell.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd like to say that I've known Jo nearly all of those 38 years at the district. The only person serving here longer has been David Mann, but Jo's mum used to be a councillor as well in the early days, and Jo has been so instrumental in helping individual members to deal with the problems that they have when it comes to housing. She has always been first port of call, and she would direct us where we need to go. And I think there's an awful lot of residents out in the district that really owe her a debt of gratitude. And I know that I will miss her because I do contact her a lot. and she's not going far because she does live in my town, so we will still see her, but we'd like to wish her well and thank her for everything that she has done.
Thank you. And I think, Joe, you want to say something, don't you?
Yes, so I must admit, I Thank you. Well, it's quite hard to know how to respond to some of those comments. Thank you so much for that. I can't believe where the time has gone. I still remember joining the council as a trainee back in 1982. It was very different. I don't think there was a computer in sight in those days. Lots of typewriters and a few smoky offices at that time as well. It was quite different. When I joined, I worked at Braintree, I worked at Witham, I worked at Housestead, so I got to know the district very well. And yes, although I've lived in all the three main towns, so I do know the district very well, actually. It has been a huge privilege to be able to have a career that I've really felt very passionate about over the years. And I think my officer head is probably still on at the moment, because some of the things that have been discussed tonight, I'm sort of thinking about, oh, what are we doing? What have we done that? We've done that. So I think I've got a little bit of time to go before I fully relax into retirement. It's been a wonderful career. And I think the reason I wanted to come here tonight was I really wanted to say thank you to members. I've worked alongside you on a number of projects, and we've some great things have been achieved over the years, and it really has been a privilege. So yes, it's a strange time. It's a very long time, but obviously for me it felt the right time to leave. And I'm sure I shall continue to look how the things are going and see what's happening, because it's something I do still sort of very passionate about, around issues around housing and community. And just thank you all as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I apologise, Councillor Everard. Okay, Councillor Everard would like to say something as well.
Yes, this is switched on, yes it is. Joe, I remember going through some very difficult problems with you, and you always had the answer, and you were so, well, teed up with everything. It's amazing. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you. I know I've often phoned Jo up and she's been amazing, and I'm going to miss you terribly. Yeah, probably still phone you, expect you to do wonderful things. All right.
Madam Chairman, I believe Councillor Butland's got one final announcement.
Yes, Madam Chairman, I did say it was an end of an era, in fact a dual end of the era, because the other person who will be leaving us before our next meeting is Lee Crabb. Lee unfortunately can't be with us tonight, but Lee is another officer who has spent a significant, huge period of time here in Braintree and done so much within the district and for the council. Lee started in Braintree District Council in 1987 after 5 years at Harlow. That's of course long enough for anyone to work in Harlow before coming to Braintree. And he held a number of roles in environmental services, and in 1991 became the environmental health manager, then the environmental protection manager, and has been head of service since 2008. Lee had an unfortunate and difficult start to his local government career because for a period he had to work for Peter Tattersley. But nevertheless, he overcame that problem, and his service has grown over the years, initially covering environment, then incorporating a range of services, emergency planning, health and safety, health and well-being, leisure services, heritage services, and a 300-year-old windmill. Lee's been integral to the development of the council's plans to respond to the increasing role of this authority in public health through the Live Well strategy and plans, also supporting the development of partnerships with the Museum Trust and Fusion, and is one of our most experienced officers in dealing with emergencies. He's often been the one who's gone out to start a rest centre for a flooded area in the middle of the night, or attending the scene of an incident to coordinate on-site BDC response. As a trained and qualified environmental health officer, there are some things that you train and prepare for, and there's others that you hope you will never have to use. Certainly, to be retiring, the last 20 months of Lee's career has been, to say the least, out of the ordinary. Lee has led our environmental health teams through an unprecedented situation, and their knowledge and professional response has been noted at local, regional and national level for the work that they have done during the COVID pandemic. He supported our corporate and district-wide response to it, and quite frankly, I think we would have struggled without his leadership in that area. And I know when I speak with county council colleagues how much they appreciate the work of Braintree District Council, which means the work that Lee has done. Lee, of course, is an interesting guy, energetic, creative and practical. That's what it says here, and that I can do. But again, just a personal point, only probably about 7 or 8 months ago, I got a phone call at 25 to midnight from a resident complaining about the noise that was coming from a neighbouring property. She also suggested that there might be a whiff of cannabis there. I have to say, at 25 to 12, my brain wasn't fully, so I thought, well, I'll start with the police. If it's cannabis, they'll be interested. So I rang them. They said, I would get in touch with a local authority. It's probably them who can deal with it. So I thought, well, before I go back to the resident, I will try all things. So I picked up the little card with the on-call number. One, I wasn't necessarily expecting it to be answered at 20, what was now sort of 10 to 12. Secondly, if it was, I expected it to be answered by someone probably in Causeway House. So I rang the number. Who should answer it at 10 to 12 but Lee Crabb? I said, I'm terribly sorry to disturb you, Lee. I hope you're not in bed. And he said, no, I'm just finishing off the last pint. But even at 10 to 12, he was able to give me the advice, which was that it was the police who should have been handling it in the first place, and it enabled me to go back. I think we all have those memories of Lee, a quite extraordinary character, but someone still with us until the end of October. But this is the closest council to his retirement. And again, I'd like to record our thanks to Lee for all that he has done during his lengthy service with the District Council. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Tattersley.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm delighted to say something about Lee, and I think any successes that I've had have been mostly down to him. Lee's attitude is it doesn't need a strategy necessarily, it just needs something to get done. And he was always at the forefront of actually going out and doing activities himself. We often spoke about whether this was a strategy or an action plan. And we always decided that it was the action plans that came out that came out the best. He was a wonderful officer to be working for you, because as Councillor Butland said, if anything needed doing, then you could always rely and ask on Lee to be done. And I think the council will miss him a tremendous amount.
Thank you very much. Councillor Abbott.
Thank you. Yes, I concur with all that's been said. I too have known Lee for a very long time on this council, and I think the thing to take away is just how complex the area of environmental legislation has become. And I can only think as we move forward that's going to become more complex, and there's going to be more duties, particularly with the climate change agenda. And indeed, Lee has been helping our group very recently on some advice we asked about air quality monitoring, which I think, again, with the new World Health Organization limits that may be coming in, is going to be an important issue. So I would like to again thank him on behalf of our group and for all he's done for us, all of us as councillors and residents, and wish him all the best for the future.
Thank you. Councillor Pell.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Like everybody else, I think Lee is going to be a great miss to us. He's quality. I'm very grateful that he still lives in my patch and hoping that he will maybe help us out with things that we have locally. But he's got a strange sense of humour, which makes you feel at ease. And he has done so much, especially for the cycling strategy that we've been working on. He's sort of been non-stop, but he's been the go-to man. So what with Joe and Lee going, it's a sad day.
Councillor Everard, did you want to speak?
Yes, Lee. He had so much knowledge of things that had happened in the council and technical knowledge as well. He was absolutely full of information, and I'm also happy that together with some lead officers, he was one of the instruments to so that we were able to integrate the friends of the windmill, Rocking Windmill, into the council's way of working, and what with health and safety and all that sort of business. But also the Lee and the lead officers have actually made the windmill to be an important asset to the council. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Butland. We will now proceed to agenda item 6, motion by Tom Cunningham. Councillor Tom Cunningham.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I formally move the motion on pages 5 and 6 of the agenda.
Right. Before I invite Councillor Tom Cunningham to formally move the motion, I would like to remind members that one amendment has been submitted, which is set out in the supplemental report circulated to all members last Friday. We will deal with the amendment once the motion has been formally moved and seconded. Members, please can I remind you to remain seated while you're speaking. Councillor Cunningham, please formally move your motion, which is set out on pages 5 and 6 of the agenda. You will be invited to make your speech on your motion once you have been seconded and after we have dealt with the amendment.
My apologies, Madam Chairman. I formally move the motion on pages 5 and 6 of the agenda.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. Upon a submission, this motion was seconded by Councillor Van Dalken. Councillor Van Dalken, do you second this motion? And do you wish to reserve your right to speak?
I do second it, Madam Chairman, and I do wish to reserve my right. Thank you.
Okay. Members, as I have indicated, before I invite Councillor Cunningham to make his speech on the motion, we must first deal with the amendment. Please can I invite Councillor Abbott to present, formally state and move the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, I move the amendment. Do you want me to go straight into speaking to it?
Yeah.
Madam Chairman, if we can just have it seconded before we move on to the speech. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to second the amendment and reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So our amendment is a very simple one. It preserves the first two paragraphs of the original motion, which are about the levelling up agenda. But then it says, this council believes that it is vital that these aspirations are supported, instead of that these aspirations are not put at risk by policies that would. And what comes after the would in the original motion is a long list of negative points. Our amendment turns the motion from a negative into a positive whilst preserving the original meaning of the policy. Our amendment removes what is, as some of the public speakers have said, a long list of negatively set, misleadingly presented national policies over which this council has little or no control. Indeed, it is surprising, again, as a member of the public said, that this motion could be tabled, given that the Constitution says, quotes, no motion shall be put unless it relates to a matter over which the council has powers or which affects the council or the district. Now, I'm not saying the first part of the motion is constitutionally improper. It's not. It's constitutionally proper. But the list of negative lines is clearly, demonstrably and directly an attack on Green Party policy. They are not within the powers of this council. They do not affect the district because they are largely about national issues. But the bigger point, which I will come to in more detail in the debate on the motion itself, is that they're largely inaccurate and therefore can't be applied. And therefore we believe that this motion should have been struck out. The motion could have talked about many positive things that could be done to support the levelling up agenda. It could have talked about supporting healthier living by protecting and enhancing open spaces and planting new trees and woodlands, which is very important to people, particularly in the COVID period and its recovery from. It could have talked about the vital issue of protecting our high streets, which are recovering from the COVID pandemic. It could have talked about community policing and the need to get more police on the beat and to have local police stations again, which the Conservatives closed many of, so that our local communities feel safer. It could have talked about health, which is a key issue for all of us and the growing local population of new residents. It could have talked about affordable housing, which is a very important issue and has been referred to earlier. It could have talked about this council developing better relationships with local communities. We would say that the local plan process damaged some of those relationships. It could have talked about the crucial need, and we thought this was happening, according to the Conservatives, but it hasn't, of delivering modal shift, which would both reduce congestion on the roads and improve air quality. And it could have talked about increasing recycling and the circular economy. But it doesn't do any of those. As I say, it is just a list of negative, misleadingly applied Green Party policies. If this motion is passed unamended, it does this council no favours. It only serves a narrow party political agenda of the Conservative Party. And it is a year, Madam Chairman, since the last time the administration did this. Members may remember the October 2020 full council meeting. I certainly remember it, when Councillor Butland got up and made a whole series of complaints about the opposition, most of which had nothing to do with the opposition. And that followed, and I'm going to say this, a period in which I'd had a number of meetings with him. Now, he talked about mental health earlier and said that he was sure Councillor Abbott would want to agree with him on mental health. Of course I do. People shouldn't be making jokes about mental health. But those 3 meetings I had with him in the run-up to that October meeting, I said to him I was under a lot of stress and pressure. And I was doing my best to meet his pressure he was putting on me in regards to the makeup of the G&I group. He told me during those meetings that he didn't put any blame on me for what had been happening, and that he said I'd done nothing wrong. And I said, well, whatever you do, I hope it's reasonable. He said, well, you're not going to like this, just before he stripped me of 3 positions, having done nothing wrong. It caused me to have a breakdown. So when Councillor Butland talks about mental health, I think he needs to think about everybody he has dealing with, including the Leader of Opposition. I took a complaint about those matters and I was told, well, he can do it. And I agree, he did have the powers to do it. The question is whether he should have done it, because quite frankly, I felt, Madam Chairman, that I'd been bullied.
We now open the debate on the amendment. Please can I remind you that speeches should relate strictly to the amendment under discussion and be necessary for the progression of the debate, or to a point of order relating to procedure. Councillor Beavis.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I am supporting the concept of the amendment because it addresses local aspirations. It is not party political. It is a statement about the values of our districts and our local communities. I further support the concept of the levelling up agenda, but it requires explaining at a local level. Life expectancy differs between a mall in Blackpool and a mall in Surrey by almost 20 years, and this is appalling. But councillors, this issue of equality is closer to home. The variation is not only life expectancy, but educational attainment, income, welfare, life outcomes in our district. Talent and ability is spread across our district, but opportunity and chance is not. In my own ward, we have young school leavers choosing not to take an apprenticeship or further qualifications, not because they're not good enough, but because the district does not have the transport infrastructure to get them there. The elderly and the vulnerable have to rely on family and neighbours for hospital and primary care transportation. Local levelling up must be addressed urgently. We all recognise the climate change emergency, and COP26 will seek to find the balance between prosperity and protecting our environment as new technologies are found. But an urgency is required. Our council must concentrate on the here and the now, local jobs, better cross-boundary transportation links, truly affordable homes, and a district that has pride in our people, our place, and our culture. We have a duty to create a fairer society where everybody has the opportunity to fulfil their potential. Emerging from this pandemic, now is the time to reset and to reconfirm to our residents the future direction of our district. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Beavis.
Madam Chairman, if you want to just ask members to indicate if they wish to speak any further on this item for me, please.
Would anyone like to speak any further on this?
Madam Chairman, Councillor Butland's indicated.
Councillor Butland.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I hope you will just give me the same latitude that you allowed Councillor Abbott. I'm not quite sure how his remarks regarding what happened in October fits in with this, but I do feel I do need to respond. Councillor Abbott will recall when I said it was nothing that he had done. That was a genuine feeling. It was, however, amongst some of the abusive remarks that one of his own group had made, and that member is in the chamber tonight. And the fact that I felt it it needed leadership from that group if that was to be dealt with. And Councillor Abbott said, well, I've asked the councillor concerned and he won't do it, and that's therefore the end of it. OK, we have a difference of view on that. It is a pressure job. It's a pressure job being leader of the opposition. I can assure you it's quite a pressure job being leader of the council, particularly in these days, as I referred to earlier, about the abuse that goes on social media. And it's not pleasant having a granddaughter come to you and say, why are they saying, Grandad, that you are taking brown envelopes for developers? It's not pleasant. And I'm really concerned about the impact this will have on people coming forward to serve in local government. Because none of us come forward for that. We can have our debates, we can have our disagreements. But I think it's an unfortunate thing that it's getting, in my view, too personal. As regards the amendment seeks to reduce, to take out the bullet points in our original motion. I will leave Councillor Cunningham to deal with that. Why I would ask Council to reject the amendment. Councillor Abbott says they're not true. Every one of these is straight from, and we can illustrate the actual number of the Green Party's policies. These are straight out. Now, they may read as nonsense, but they are Green Party policies. And why is that important for the people of Braintree? Because I read that frequently, quite often on the Better Braintree Together Facebook page, that the Green and Independent Party see themselves as the main challengers and will presumably be seeking to take control of the council in 2023. And running a council is not just about hedgerows and hedgehogs. People want to know what the policies are going to be, and they want to know what the policies of the parties are. And all this amendment says is that here are some of the policies of the Green and Independent group, and we believe, and we would ask Council to support, that those policies would put at risk what Councillor Cunningham will talk about when he moves the motion. And it's on those grounds that I would ask the Council to reject the amendment.
Madam Chairman, if there's no other members wishing to speak, you might want to invite Councillor Thorogood as seconder to the proposal.
I'd just like to remind Councillor Butland of, he says it shouldn't be too personal. I'd just like to remind him of the personal attack that he made on me in 2019 at a full council meeting. It was a real hatchet job, and it got members of his party banging desks and shouting, and that was rather unpleasant. But that was a personal attack by him. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thorogood.
Madam Chairman, can I write a reply or point of order, if I may? I'm not quite sure a personal attack is the same as indicating a statement of fact that actually Councillor Thorogood stood in a by-election, parliamentary by-election in Crewe and Nantwich in 2008 on a ticket to reduce the price of fuel duty. Madam Chairman, that is a statement of fact. In fact, his name was read out in a declaration of result. So I don't think that is a personal attack. Just a point of order, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
We're moving on. You can not have the first bit. Right. I knew this would be complicated. Right.
Madam Chairman, as all members have indicated to speak, if you wish to move forward to the vote, please.
Madam Chairman, could we request a recorded vote on the amendment, please?
Thank you.
Apologies, Madam Chairman, and Councillor Abbott, as proposer to the amendment, does have the right of reply.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I won't go back over all the other stuff because I think we just end up in a ping-pong match of tit for tat. All I would say to Councillor Butland is, I know what it felt like. The key issue I would say in summing up is in response to him as well. He says residents will want to know ahead of the 2023 elections what the G&I group would do if it took control of the council, if I sum up what he said. But none of these, apart from the first one tangentially, are G&I policies. None of them. The G&I policies are set out in the cooperation agreement at 5 point, which is published online. And I would presume, because Councillor Butland does a lot of searching for these things, that he will have read it. This list is a list of poorly presented and misleadingly put National Green Party policies. The G&I group will not be standing for election in 2023 on a policy of what it's going to do about NATO. It is plainly ridiculous that the primary motion was ever accepted for debate. And as I say, you would expect me to say as leader of the opposition, but I am saying it genuinely, please do not allow this motion as it stands to be agreed. It really paints the district council in a bad light. The amendment puts an end to this silliness of these bullet points and ends with a positive point that policies will be supported that support levelling up. I would ask all members to support the amendment, and I'd like to move a recorded vote, please.
Right. Well, actually, we were going to have one anyway. So
Madam Chairman, procedurally, you need 3 members to indicate a recorded vote. You've had one from Councillor Cunningham and one from Councillor Abbott, so you need one more.
And Councillor Butland, thank you. So we'll now put the amendment to the vote.
Good evening, members. Thank you, Chairman. We're not going to ask the microphone to go into everybody's hands as I go round the room asking for your vote. We think if people could talk up loudly, the microphones will pick it up enough so for me to hear. So, as is normal, I will call out each councillor's name and ask for your vote for, against or abstain. And this is on the amendment that is before us this evening. Councillor Abbott. Councillor Bore. Against. Councillor Beavis. Councillor Bowers. Against. Councillor Butland. Against. Councillor Coleridge. Against. Councillor Courtauld. Against. Councillor Mrs Cunningham.
Against.
Councillor Cunningham. Against. Councillor Dervish. Against. Councillor Euston. Against. Councillor Everard. Against. Councillor Garrett.
Against.
Councillor Hensman.
Against.
Councillor Hicks. For. Councillor Horner.
Against.
Councillor Kilmartin.
Against.
Councillor Corsina.
Against.
Councillor McCardle.
Against.
Councillor McKee.
Against.
Councillor Monday.
Abstain.
Councillor Pell.
Abstain.
Councillor Pritchard.
Against.
Councillor Radley.
Abstain.
Councillor Raymond.
Against.
Councillor Ritchie.
Against.
Councillor Rose.
Against.
Councillor Sandon. Councillor Santamoro.
Against.
Councillor Scattergood.
Against.
Councillor Swear.
Against.
Councillor Spray.
Against.
Councillor Tattersley.
Against.
Councillor Thorogood.
For.
Councillor Van Dulken.
Against.
Councillor Wallace.
For.
Councillor Walsh.
For.
Councillor Walters.
Against.
Councillor Weeks.
For.
Councillor White.
Against.
Councillor Wilson,
Against.
Councillor Wrench, against, and Councillor Wright. For. Thank you, members. We'll just calculate those through.
Thank you. The amendment is lost. Now we've dealt with the amendment, I'd like to invite Councillor Cunningham as the mover of the motion to make his speech on the motion.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. With every passing week and step by step, our communities are looking to the future as living with the pandemic has become the norm. All friends and neighbours have been impacted some way since those very dark and frightening times of early 2020. Some have suffered great personal loss and pain. For others, the genuine concerns over job security, money in the bank, and the future of a next generation whose education and skills development have been impacted greatly remain. The pain of this period, and for many the pain is still there, has been eased by extraordinary collective efforts of many, demonstrating the very best of the private, public, voluntary sectors and services. For a minority, but still too many, in our district, even prior pandemic, a local economy of low unemployment was still not working for them. In July 2016, on the steps of Downing Street, the then new Prime Minister, Theresa May, talked about the just managing. And despite the difficulties of getting Brexit done, successive Conservative governments had focused on policy that helps those who are just or not managing. That is and remains the beating heart of levelling up. Madam Chairman, this is not an agenda just relevant to a political battleground of marginal parliamentary constituencies geographically clustered ahead of a general election. It is vital and relevant to every part of the country. And locally, we see and we know that there are areas of social deprivation across our district. These issues must be addressed. And as the full impact of the ending of furlough is felt, we all know that for those unfortunate to be impacted, there will be a period where fears and anxiety will only get worse. Locally, residents know that for their district council, not only is efficient service delivery important, but that this Conservative-run council has spoken about the importance of economic development and community enhancement and delivered with actions and interventions to support. These have been vital, forward-thinking investments in our community and our economy for the benefit of residents, needed before the pandemic and essential emerging out of it. Agree or disagree, you know where we stand. On most matters that transcend political difference, the administration has had the support of the two longer established opposition groups. A shared consensus based on an understanding that for all the political posturing, public service is truly measured by how much you deliver for fellow residents. It is a Braintree district way, and it is a way that was established long before most and possibly all members of the current council first took their seats. Madam Chairman, it belongs to all parties and to none. The largest opposition group, the Green and Independent Party, are good at saying what they're against. The North Essex Garden communities, incinerators, the A120 proposed route, and in one member's case, multi-million-pound investment in an enterprise centre, including £7 million of government funding. Yet apart from not cutting trees or grass, we hear very little about what they are for. Yes, we believe that they are committed to tackling climate change. Councillor Abbott has been an assiduous local campaigner on this for decades. For some of his Green and Independent Party colleagues, the journey to this position has been long and winding and taken a surprising route. On other issues, such as supporting the economy and the community, we hear very little or nothing. With such an absence of local policy, what have we to fill the gap? The Green Party website articulates clearly a national policy framework which, ever implemented at a national or local level, would eat away at the economic fabric of a district primed to take advantage of new opportunities post-pandemic and the competitive advantage felt by being close to London, Cambridge, and between major ports and an international airport. A policy package that would eat away at the soul of communities, both rural and urban, but with almost a disproportionate emphasis on damaging rural economies through their ridiculous policy on land use and forestry. Madam Chairman, at this critical point, for all levels of government to really drive forward a levelling up agenda, to work with the private sector, education establishments, and other public bodies to effect real change, we need to highlight the policies that would compromise this vital work and reject them. A policy package that is ideologically driven from a platform of bad-tempered protest with some affiliates to the Green Party, distasteful anarchism and illegal behaviour sprinkled into the mix on occasion. The time has come for the local and Green Independent Party to elevate themselves from a party of opportunistic opposition.
Madam Chairman, the point of order has been called. If you'd like to hear the point of order and make a determination.
Thank you. Councillor Cunningham stated that the Green Party associates are engaged in illegal and criminal behaviour. That is a very strong statement to make, and presumably he can evidence it. And if he can't, he should withdraw it. And particularly as this motion is, as he and Councillor Butland have said, is directly aimed at the GNI group. By implication, he is stating that in some way we are connected with criminal behaviour. He needs to be able to evidence that.
Madam Chairman, I think check the webcast. I said those affiliated with, including those affiliated with the Green Party, have been involved in anarchist and illegal behaviour. I hope that clarifies the point for Councillor Abbott.
Right. It was indicated that the word affiliated with was said, and so I think we'll move on if that's okay.
And thank you, Madam Chairman. I've literally got a few more lines of my speech to make, and then obviously the debate can take place. But a further point of clarification, which will hopefully allay Councillor Abbott's fears, is that a councillor on Medway is, I believe, the organiser of Insulate Britain. So there is a direct linkage there. I'll move on. The Green Councillor, yeah, absolutely. So, right, the opportunity for the Green Party to elevate themselves from this opportunistic opposition. Let's see if they can do that tonight. And Madam Chairman, they may well like to articulate the policies outlined in the motion that they would locally jettison, if given half the chance. But it's tonight it's important that council gives a clear steer to residents and neighbours that it rejects the ideologically driven policies that would lead to economic and social destruction. The challenges and opportunities of a brighter future following on from this wretched period demand nothing less. Madam Chairman, I respectfully urge all colleagues to support the substantive motion in full. Thank you.
Sorry, thank you, Councillor Cunningham. Councillor Van Dijk, do you wish to speak now, or?
Madam Chairman, I've just been made aware of a further point of order by Councillor Beavis. If you'd like to hear that first.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just for clarification, there is no Green and Independent Party. It doesn't exist. There's a Green Party and there's some independent members, and we work together in a local coalition, but there is no party. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we all know that that's just an expression, I think, to just say green and independent, because you work together.
We still haven't had it illegal justified. As usual, they're saying what they want about it.
I don't think that's true. And actually, I'm going to say something now, which is really probably quite irregular. But I have this theory about, and I don't care which party they belong to, but, you know, if I was having a heart attack in an ambulance and I couldn't get off the slip road onto the M25 because people were blocking my way, I think that's absolutely disgraceful. If you can't do it any other way and just discuss it properly like normal, intelligent people, then I think that's very sad. Thank you. I think actually now I'd like to call the meeting to order, and Councillor Van Dalken is waiting to speak.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and members. My view as a long-standing resident of the district is that one of the main reasons this council exists is to help maintain and indeed improve the service to residents as well as their quality of life. And our contribution as members and as an authority involves us in a wide variety of community assets like leisure facilities and parks, in helping the homeless and other less fortunate residents, and many other areas of general importance to the public. These are some of the building blocks of social cohesion, and it's often disappointing that many on the opposition side seem to show far more interest in ecological issues than in many of the important district responsibilities. Ecological issues which in the short and medium term are not improving the lot of residents immediately concerned with jobs, housing and the lives of their children, especially after the last 18 months. Two important and interrelated community issues which can detract from social cohesion, regrettably, are crime and drugs. And it's useful to note some of the soft green attitudes towards these issues, clearly stated in the long list of official policies of the Green Party of England and Wales on their website. The frankly alarming suggestion of only reparation for crimes committed rather than punishment or retribution has already been highlighted in our motion. Add to that, and I quote, "We will progressively reduce immigration controls," unquote, and we begin to see where the Green Party so-called progressive stance would take us if they, as in Scotland now, begin to influence national policies. Many residents and families in Braintree District, our neighbours, have been affected by the scourge of drug addiction and abuse, and County Lines activity stretching out from London. Rather than support efforts by police and local communities to crack down on this vile trade, a Green government promises in the website, according to its policies, to, and I quote, "replace drug prohibition with a legalised, regulated system of drug control," unquote. It would abolish routine custodial sentencing for non-violent drug offences and I quote once more, policy DR 408, make powder cocaine available in fixed doses at fixed prices to people who wish to use the drug for recreational purposes through the specialist pharmacy model, unquote. None of this would rid us of the scourge of Class A drugs and the physical and criminal damage which go with them, and paradoxically would in fact be ramped up by the criminal fraternity to make up for the loss of illegal income from the so-called soft drugs, which a Green government would seek to legalise. Our local Green opposition will tell us that they are not involved with such national matters or don't agree with them all, implying that they can be safely pushed under the carpet while they discuss only worthy climate change and ecological matters relevant to Braintree District. Members, I would ask that you firmly reject such an argument, as the Green Party, like any other political party, wishes to control the levels of the levers of power at some time in the future. And as you have seen from the motion and heard from other supporters of its contents this evening, The overall Green stance is one which would do harm to the local business community and job market, distract from levelling up, and should not be encouraged to attract supporters and voters at any level. Madam Chairman, I echo Councillor Cunningham in calling on all members to support the substantive motion.
Thank you, Councillor Van Dalken. I'd now like to open up the debate on the motion. Please can I remind members that speeches should relate strictly to the motion under discussion and be necessary for the progression of the debate, or to a point of order relating to the procedure. Speeches should be no longer than 5 minutes, and I will curtail excessive speeches or where the speech no longer addresses the motion. Members may only speak once on this motion. Do any members wish to speak on the motion? If so, please indicate by raising your hand. Right. Yeah. Councillor Sandon.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd like to comment on the last bullet point in the motion, where the Conservative Party claim a credible link between the sense of pride that communities get from the monarchy and levelling up aspirations. Personally, I'm not really sure how compelling the link to levelling up is, but what I do believe is that the reference to abolishing the monarchy in a local council level motion was driven by the need to attack the Green Party, diverting focus and energy away from addressing challenging local issues. However, since pride in the monarchy has been included by the Conservatives in this motion, I thought I would point out a link that is credible between the monarchy and improving our local environment, and which I think has huge potential to give our local community in Braintree District a sense of pride. The link involves the Earthshot Prize programme, which is presented by Prince William and which has just been released. I would massively recommend watching it, and the first episode is also linked to the first point in the Conservatives' motion about intensive agriculture. The programme looks at how we could innovate and invest more in our farming to grow much more food locally, and gives a great example of this being done in the Netherlands in a much more sustainable way. Currently, we import almost half of our food in the UK, and our soil quality is becoming more and more degraded each year. But if we could invest in this sort of sustainable but very efficient farming and stop building all over our greenfield agricultural land in Braintree District as well, there would be plenty of room for nature and rewilded areas as part of that. And making room for nature and growing more food locally could give our community a huge sense of pride. Currently, the UK is one of the most nature depleted countries in the world. A report has just gone to the United Nations that has shown that we're in the bottom 10% globally. So there is huge scope here to improve things and our sense of pride at the same time. Unfortunately, some people will react to the Earthshot programme by attacking Prince William. They will say he's a hypocrite because he flies a lot, for example. The problem with attacks like these, whether it be on Prince William's carbon footprints or via motions like the one tonight, is that it distracts from and shuts down debate on the actual issue, which is that carrying on as we currently are and business as usual is taking us down a very destructive path. Instead of wasting the very limited time we still have with this sort of motion, we need to focus on solutions and how we can do things better in our local area. So the final point I want to make is about episode 5 of Prince William's Earthshot programme. This episode is about waste and shows many examples from around the planet where people are working on innovative ideas for dealing with it differently. The core message is that everything can and must be reused. There should actually be no such word as waste. I really recommend watching it, and just a very small spoiler, none of the brilliant ideas for dealing with waste involve building massive incinerators in the countryside to burn it all up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sandon. Councillor Courtauld.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I wanted to speak in support of Councillor Cunningham's motion because, of course, district councillors are influenced by the national policies of the parties they represent. In particular, though it seems almost absurd to have to do so, I wanted to wholeheartedly deplore any move towards abolishing the monarchy. Our constitutional monarchs are not mere heads of state. They're not elected by a percentage of the population to see through a political agenda. They embody the entire nation and all British families and British individuals. They are above politics, representing, preserving and sustaining our great institutions, our values, history and traditions, without fear or favour, without bias, and inspiring sometimes heartbreaking sacrifice and endurance. The enthusiasm and generosity with which the residents of my own ward, the Cones, are already preparing for the Platinum Jubilee is a testament to the admiration and affection in which the monarchy is held. And I think there are similar preparations going on in every parish in Britain. Would a president really be an adequate substitute? Would Caroline Lucas of the Greens or Nicola Sturgeon of their partners in Scotland, the SNP, who also wish to abolish the monarchy, do better? Or a British Macron or Biden, or even a President Boris? I think we all know how those who elected us would answer. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Courtauld. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I wasn't going to say these first few words, but the leader of this council has made remarks against me, but not had the courtesy to identify the fact that he was referring to me. He earlier talked about an abusive remark by a person who's here. I think he was referring to me. That comment, and I'll just say this very briefly, that comment was jovial, and at most it was light-hearted satire. And Councillor Buckland is factually incorrect to say that I refused to withdraw. I did offer to withdraw through my group. I'm just responding to something that was said about me, which is inaccurate, and I wish to be able to correct the record on my reputation as an elected councillor. I will stop in about 3 words, please, Madam Chairman. I did offer to withdraw twice through my group leader, and he can confirm that. I didn't get the courtesy of a reply. I will now speak to the motion. Thank you very much for your patience. Thank you. I will now speak to the motion. I'm surprised that at this time of overlapping crisis that this council's Conservative leadership chose to use taxpayers' funds and BDC resource to even debate this motion. It's disingenuous, selective and mealy-mouthed. It resiles from even naming the party being attacked in the motion. It's unsubtle dog whistle manoeuvre which distracts from real local issues. On what basis do those responsible for our governance consider this highly selective and partisan poke at a national party to be relevant to our local council? I don't think it adheres to section 1217 of our constitution. No motion shall be put unless it relates to a matter over which the council has power. I wonder at the political bona fides of any council, including a council leader who uses terms like climate change terrorists in our chamber. Why has no one in authority said anything on upholding standards of debate and the good name of our council? Surely members and members of the public, we can do better than this. The promoters of this motion seek to debate national policy, but ignore any of the actual consequences for Braintree residents of this Conservative government's economic mismanagement. Farmers shooting their own pigs, extended petrol queues, disrupted food supply, universal credit cuts of up to £1,000, including for the working poor, some 5.5 million people in fuel poverty by next spring, just on that.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh. Right, Councillor Spray, I'd just like to say it would be very nice if the speeches were not personal, they were dealing with the debate at hand. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm confident that this administration in this council is the only one capable of overseeing, managing and delivering the projects, the infrastructure needed to maintain the excellent reputation this council already has in this part of the UK and actually beyond East Anglia. We have major serious schemes already underway and planned for the very near future. Schemes that will not just improve the look of our three towns and how residents are able to move around between those towns and villages and out into the countryside for work and leisure, but schemes which bring employment both short term during construction and long term. They bring jobs, good quality jobs. Horizon 120, 65 acres of business, innovation and logistics park, expected to create up to 2,000 new jobs and a new enterprise centre to support startups and small businesses. iConstruct, nearing completion in Springwood Drive, an innovative hub which will be offering business support, grant schemes and advice to companies involved in the construction industry, creating up to 130 new jobs. The regeneration of Braintree Town Centre, bringing affordable homes, a Live Well Health Hub, a 70-bed hotel, a new bus interchange, public toilets, car parking. The pedestrianisation scheme, which will create a space that will draw people in for events and social activities, generating more trade for the town's businesses. Witham and Halstead have not been forgotten. There are plans underway for investment in both those towns to give their businesses a lift. These schemes are already bringing much needed investment to this district, and this is being done responsibly with a view to the long-term prosperity of Braintree district. I don't hear, Madam Chairman, the main opposition party on this council saying anything positive or actually anything much at all about any of this. But when it comes to infrastructure, investment and supporting businesses, this administration is the one to do it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Spray. Thank you, Councillor Spray. Councillor Abbott.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The Conservative motion is simply a waste of everyone's time. It is the worst, most pointless and pathetic motion I have seen either at Braintree District Council or Essex County Council in over 22 years as a councillor. What exactly do the Conservatives think this council can do about pensions, drugs policy, NATO, the banking system, migration policy, national tax rates, or indeed the monarchy? As I and others have said, this motion should never have been allowed to be tabled. However, it's very helpful in one respect. It exposes the fact that the Conservatives have become out of touch with communities. Yes, the levelling up agenda is important, but where in this motion are the policies to support it in Braintree District? There are none. Without policies, it just becomes a soundbite. We've heard some extraordinary things this evening, and we could spend, I'm sure, a long more time debating them, but I'm sure none of us want to. One of them was Councillor Cunningham's allegation of criminality of affiliates of the Greens, as if no Tory politicians have ever been criminalised or locked up. Quite extraordinary. I'm sure he can do a bit of research, and there's quite a long list. Perhaps the Conservatives would do better concentrating on levelling up in Braintree District. Now, Councillor Spray talks about all the investment that's gone in. Yes, we know that, and we note it. But isn't it interesting that 90% of the 2021-22 capital spend of over 30 million is in Braintree and Great Notley and not elsewhere in this district? Whilst those of us representing villages are berated by Councillor Tattersley for daring to ask for expansion of GP services in our villages to match a growing population, Braintree is getting that investment in improved health services. And the Conservatives know, despite their pathetic attempts tonight to say all we ever talk about is hedges, that we have raised the issue of local health spending time and time again. They'd rather airbrush it out of the conversation, though. So we've got 90% plus of the capital spend in the next year in Braintree and Great Notley. And it just so happens, Madam Chairman, but I'm sure it's a complete coincidence, that 75% of the Cabinet represent the very same area. And while the Conservatives point fingers at the opposition, they completely have failed to accept their disastrous new towns plan policy, which was entirely their own responsibility and which has wasted millions of pounds and led to unplanned housing estates with little or no on-site services being built on greenfields around local villages. Councillor Butland specifically said at a number of full council meetings that that would never happen. But then Councillor Butland does have a history of saying things which change with the wind. In 2019, he said he had a dilemma about whether to vote Conservative. And now he's staunchly supporting the Boris Johnson's levelling up agenda, but I believe he thought he was a clown not that long ago. Councillor Van Dorken, his attitude towards the Green Party, and I checked this tonight, but it appears to have disappeared off his Twitter feed. He was retweeting from a spoof account called Caroline Mucus, which contained a number of sexualised comments and a highly offensive derogatory comment about people of a particular identity. It's disappeared from his feed. I don't know whether that's because the account's been abolished or he took it off, but I think that sums up his attitude towards the Greens. Now, we're here tonight, lots of praise for the Royals and what they do, and we hear Councillor Butland and his colleagues berating everything the Greens do. Prince Charles was quoted tonight on television, the heir to the throne, the next king, as saying that whilst he disagreed with some of the tactics of Green campaigners, and by the way, the two new leaders of the Green Party have said exactly the same, he understands their frustration about dealing with the climate change agenda. So perhaps Councillor Butler would like to take his argument up with Prince Charles. I'm not going to repeat the long list of crises facing this country that Councillor Walsh has rightly referred to, but I would refer to the very good time apparently had by all at the Tory party conference as they were cutting the benefits of the poorest people in this country, and a Tory MP was complaining that he couldn't get by on £80,000 a year. So what about all those misleading and negative jibes about green policies? Let's actually have a look at what the 2019 Green Party election manifesto says and see which of these the Conservatives disagree with. Increase space for nature through the restoration of natural landscapes, habitats and species in urban, suburban and countryside environments. We want to increase the opportunities for food growing. Create millions of new, well-paid, secure jobs in every corner of this country with training funded by the Green New Deal. This unprecedented investment in training and skills will prioritise communities hit hardest by economic changes over recent years. The Green New Deal for industry will bring back, and I hope Councillor Cunningham's listening to this because I'm sure he'd support this policy, bring back the UK as an internationally recognised manufacturing powerhouse with proactive wide-scale support for UK-based manufacturing of renewables. Why didn't he quote that in his motion?
Excuse me, Councillor Abbott, you are actually over your time, so if you could...
Yep. Preventing crime with more police on the beat, 100,000 new affordable homes, regional mutual banks to help businesses expand. And by the way, the Green Party does not want to abolish the royal family. It wants to disassociate the monarchy from passing of legislation. They're two separate things. This motion, as I said, is a complete waste of time and it misleadingly puts Green Party policies. I would urge all members to reject it. It's a very poor reflection on this council. It's poorly worded, misleading and fails, and this is the key point, to set out actually what we would be doing as a district to level up.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott. Councillor White.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I raise my objection to any thought of weakening the defence capability of our nation or our ability through defence partnerships to protect our nation's friends, partners and the democracy enjoyed by our citizens The role historically of the sovereign in latter days by the elected constitutional government was firstly to protect its population with sovereign consent from war, famine and disease, and perform to the best of its ability for the good of the nation. Back in the early 20th century, the disaster on a global scale being World War I occurred. The reasons for its occurrence are well documented, political and expansionist among other things, and Britain became embroiled. Colonialism and empire was spent and reclining from our lifestyle. After that Great War, we were slow in building back our defences, as we also needed to refresh our nation. Unfortunately, another power was building their military machine, and we looked like a weak nation, unable to defend ourselves, let alone our friends and trading partners. World War II happened, not that many years after World War I, and thanks to the spirit and the tenacity of the British people, we defended our citizens and friends at great cost. We needed to refresh the war chest once again, but a new player was in the arena who had come to our aid. United States of America. They developed the idea of Bretton Woods to protect the recovery of the world and ensure trade. The Soviet bloc was on the rise, and we along with our allies, established NATO as a joint body to protect each other and provide a strong front to avoid the disasters of the previous conflicts. The world was still a destructive place, and we either avoided through diplomacy or wrongly through political will got dragged into conflicts. But NATO acted as a peacekeeper throughout Europe and the world. Maybe some political parties have forgot the terror and cost of previous conflicts that directly affected our residents of Braintree and of my ward, Turling and Hatfield Heverell. But on this side of the chamber, we have not, and therefore we must ensure that we are not a weak target and ready for any future unknown threats by maintaining our partnerships with those that share our values and alliances through NATO. We have in recent times increased this commitment to NATO on our defence budget to allow us to protect ourselves in modern warfare. And following Brexit, we have established AUKUS with our Anglophile friends, Australia and the US, again to protect our trade routes around the world and support like-minded democracies with whom we have a common value set. A deterrent or stick is the shield our government should establish and maintain to allow us to use the carrot or diplomacy for the benefit of the nation to avoid any future fear of terror.
Thank you, Councillor White. Councillor Pritchard.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I've only been a district councillor since 2019, but I can attest to the hypocrisy of what has been mentioned earlier by the opposition in terms of debates and motions not being relevant to this council. On many occasions, I've been present when they've brought up things of national and not relevance and not really relevant to local issues. I wanted to talk specifically to the business element of this motion, and I welcome this motion. We are fortunately members of a council that has been able to invest circa 75 million in commercial developments, which pretty much all, frankly, have environmental focus. I wouldn't want this to be undermined by any policy contrary to the objectives of creating high quality, sustainable roles with long-term employers in the district. Small to medium enterprises, which are many of the companies we have in our district, need confidence.
Madam Chairman, if I may, sorry, Councillor Pritchard, there's been a point of order raised by Councillor Sandham.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Since you said that we have put forward motions that are not relevant to this district, could you give an example of where we've put one that hasn't had an action directly to do with this district?
That's not what I said. You've sought to debate things that are not to do with this.
Madam Chairman, I think you are in the chair.
to continue, Councillor Pritchard.
Thank you.
That's enough, actually. Otherwise, you'll have to leave, I'm afraid.
Smaller to medium-sized enterprises, which many of the companies we have in our district, need the confidence to drive the economic recovery as we transition out of the COVID-19 pandemic, unencumbered by unnecessary limitations and/or legislation. Many of our district residents will be pensioners or will be building a fund for retirement and should have no concerns that the entities their investments are associated to aren't going to find misguided interference in these larger companies, slash their return and thus their quality of life and retirement. We have, I'm sure, members of the council of all political groupings who have run or continue to run businesses, and I would find any policy, particularly something like that outlined here on this list of, as Councillor Abbott called, negative policies, to be impacted. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pritchard. I don't think anybody else wants to speak. Councillor McGee. Sorry. Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm supporting this motion clearly, and I was going to talk about three things, but I'm actually going to address my remarks to one thing only. The main opposition to this chamber are keen to offer solutions regarding the environment, air quality, trees and hedges, and make less contribution to the debates on wealth creation and growth in the Braintree district. And that is because it's a matter of policy for the Green Party. And I'll quote the policy, actually verbatim. A sustainable society can be prosperous, but it cannot have continually rising affluence. We accept that there is a limit to the wealth each person can receive, and this is true no matter how much or how little work needs to be done to produce that wealth. Some redistribution of income will be required. What wealth there is must be shared in such a way that everyone has a guarantee of economic security, otherwise people will not heed ecological restraints in their daily lives. That's your policy, right? Well, it's a good policy, but then we come on to the levelling down policy, which you also put in the same manifesto. This levelling down policy is you call it a new deal for tax and spend, ending wasteful spending on government vanity projects and reforming our tax system so that the wealthiest pay their fair share. That sounds like socialism to me. The project considered wasteful. Scrapping, well, or even Marxism, the project considered wasteful. Scrapping Trident, 2.2 billion nuclear submarine programme, leaving the UK security exposed and destabilising the nuclear equilibrium. Scrapping HS2, 3.5 billion, leaving us to the mercy of a Victorian rail infrastructure. Scrapping the government 5 billion road programme, which would affect every resident of Braintree district with no improvements to the A120 or the A12. Scrapping the 1 billion Help to Buy scheme, which has helped many of our young people to get their first step on the housing ladder. Now then, here's the real stinger in the tail. These reductions in spending would contribute to a proposed additional revenues in 2019 manifesto by the Green Party, an eye-watering £124.4 billion to be generated by additional new tax proposals, including increased income tax of 21.7 billion, carbon taxing, increased corporation tax, new taxes on banking sector, and even a proposal to tax recreational drugs, £8 billion. So I would move that it is relevant to bring to the attention of our residents that the Green Party has a policy of wealth distribution which would make them poorer. And I so move. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Shouldn't we be discussing the levelling up in the district rather than discussing the levelling up in the country, which we have no control? This council is backing doctors' surgeries in Sybil, Headingham and Braintree, whilst telling us in the south that we are simple and naive to suggest we should extend doctor surgery in Silver End. And we can forget about anything for Witham. I'd also like to point out to Councillor Butland, he said that his grandchild thought it was bad that he was talking about brown envelopes. Surely Boris Johnson could feel just as bad when one of his children turns around and says, "Why did that nasty man in Braintree call you a third-rate clown?"
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Councillor Butland.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just want to respond to 4 points which have been raised. There's still some, I understand, objection to my use of the term terrorist in terms of the climate change people who have been blocking motorways and stopping people going about their lawful business. I would just say that the definition of the terrorist is a person who uses unlawful violence and intimidation against, especially against civilians in pursuit of political aims. My case is that is exactly fits what the climate change protesters are doing. Second point that was made was I was trying to link the Green Party to those protesters and what evidence did I have? My first piece of evidence is Councillor Shane Collins, who is the leader of the 10-member group of the Green Party members on Mendip District Council, who has been one of the national leaders in the Insulate campaign. And I'm very happy to share on YouTube, you can see exactly what he thinks and also some of his radio interviews as well. My third point in defence to the attack is that Caroline Lucas, the one and only Green MP, has backed the climate change. At the Treasury, but she refused to criticise the protesters. In fact, she was quoted as saying, "In extreme situations, it's reasonable to take extreme actions, and that is what has driven these protesters to do it." I think both of those 2 examples show the close link between the Green Party and what is going on around the country. And the final point was, which rather did surprise me, Councillor Abbott saying that a huge proportion of the investment is being made in Great Notley. Well, let's just look at that, shall we? I presume he's referring to Horizon 120. Horizon 120 is being built on land which for years has been identified in our plan as employment land. If Councillor Abbott is saying that his constituents would rather have that in their ward than in my ward, a number of people in Great Notley would happily swap places tomorrow. That investment in Great Notley isn't going to bring much direct benefit to the residents of Great Notley. It is going to bring a lot of benefit and jobs to the whole district, some of whom may live in Silver End or in Rivenhall or Witham. Sorry, I didn't hear that, Councillor Abbott. It may not be the point you were making because it's very difficult sometimes to be quite clear what you're making, but you were suggesting that the investment in Great Notley in Horizon 120 was only taking place because of the representation in that ward. And at no stage have I heard you argue that you would like a similar investment in your ward. We have Councillor Ritchie. It's not a point of order. You're just trying to argue against me. Councillor.
I'm just going to say I haven't. Have you argued? Well, anyway, I'm not going to debate it. Councillor, please carry on.
Councillor Ritchie, Councillor Cunningham and myself, do have constituents who are not best pleased to have lost what was there to build it. We have had to take and stand up to say this was employment land. And it is correctly being used. It will bring jobs to the district. As Councillor Cunningham has said, it's a disappointment that one of Councillor Abbott's members was opposed to it. £7 million worth of government money brought into this district, and Councillor Abbott and his colleagues don't welcome it. That's why we're talking about the Green Party and its policies, because the impact on this district for all our residents, wherever they live, would be absolutely catastrophic. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Wallace.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I've sat here this evening and listened to all points here from both sides of the chamber, and I have to say I'm absolutely disgusted with what's gone on this evening. And I know this isn't relating to the motion itself, but please forgive me. Councillor Butler knows that one of the reasons why I left that group was because of the childish toing and froing at other party members and other party groups. I think it's absolutely disgraceful. And other people here have been looking at me and been speaking to me, and I've been looking at faces around here, and people are fed up with it. What a waste of time. And I think it's absolutely disgraceful. And there have been barbs on both sides. I'm not saying one side is better than the other. I'm not saying that at all. But I think people expect a different standard from their elected representatives, and I think this council has fallen far short of what people expect this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace. Councillor Hensman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I've come in because I think I share frustrations across the whole council, in that I'd like to see a positive come from this, whereby it's residents, and we are one council. And I've often had conversations with the likes of Councillor Hicks, whereby he's agreed with me. We are 49 members representing this district. It doesn't matter what colour, creed, whatever you are representing. For example, there's, I think, 7,500 in my ward, 500 voted for me, 7,000 didn't. They either didn't agree with me or they just didn't bother. I still have to represent them, as do you all, regardless of what side you're on. And it's residents. We keep hearing it, it's residents. Now, national policies and so on will affect us here, and especially where it's the M11 Junction 8, because of Stansted Airport. That is going to affect this district, because that is one of the main arteries, or two of the main arteries, motorway and airport, coming into this district or passing through it. We've heard things like modal shift. Well, what are we doing about it? It's the whole of this council that needs to do something about it, in the sense of it's a shame that Councillor Playle has left, because how many people did not drive to get here? I'm one of them. Councillor Playle was clearly another one. How many others can say that? Who knows? Good for you. But equally, it's what are we going to do? You know, is it down to the administration? It is as a whole, but hopefully we can do it together. Benefits was mentioned. A lot of the district are on benefits, and there was a temporary uplift of £20 that's been recently lost this month. But spare a thought for those who are on legacy benefits, which are lower than universal credit, who did not get the £20 uplift. They still don't have that £20 uplift. They were £1,000 worse off through the pandemic as a result. So it's all blah, blah, blah. That seems to be the phrase of the week. And it's words, not action. Even the campaigners, it's words and no action. And what have people done? For example, me, myself, 213 megawatts of renewable energy has offset 147 tonnes of carbon. That's just me. If everybody else does exactly the same thing, then perhaps we can have a better planet, a better country, and a better district for our residents who we represent. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Hensman. Does anyone else want to speak at all?
Madam Chairman, if you could invite Councillor Cunningham as the proposer to close the debate.
Well, nobody else. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We've had a long debate this evening, and unfortunately we're ending on a slightly sombre note because the opposition have not taken the opportunity to distance themselves from policies that would be detrimental to both social and economic cohesion in the district of Braintree. I'm not going to go through every speech because obviously this has gone on for quite some time, but I would just like to pick up a couple of points from Councillor Abbott. One substantive about policy and a second about his sort of political jibe. I really don't think, if you're going to go down the road of comparing Jonathan Aitken, Geoffrey Archer, and dare I say of local interest, Lord Hanningfield, with those who lay in front of ambulances and stop the daily workings of society, I really think your argument is a poorly made one. And I respectfully acknowledge the very clever political point he was trying to make about spending differential across the district of Braintree. He obviously didn't listen to the speech in public question time by Councillor Playle speaking on behalf of the town of Witham, and he obviously didn't listen to our response when we said we're working on a comprehensive package for the town of Witham and we're having ongoing conversations about what we can do in Housestead. He also doesn't understand, and unfortunately, Madam Chairman, this is grown-up politics. This is grown-up public service. That when you invest, and I enjoy that little smirk by Councillor Walsh, and I'll come to him in a second. When you invest in projects, the ones that were identified by both Councillor Mrs Spray and Councillor Pritchard, I Construct Horizon 120, it's a double benefit to the taxpayer. It's levering social and community and economic benefit, but delivering proceeds to run the council to pay for services. That is grown-up politics. That is what responsible. That is what you do when you're in administration. If Councillor Abbott should ever be burdened with that, he will have difficult decisions along those lines. Madam Chairman, I've nearly finished because I'm conscious of time, and as Councillor Button so rightly said, those investments stretch well beyond the locality of where they're located.
If you could just finish now.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. As I said, the opportunity for the Green and Independent Group to distance themselves from these policies has not been taken. I acknowledge I listened to Councillor Walsh's comments about behaviour and conduct, and it's obviously a slightly change of attitude, and we look forward to this continual improvement in his behaviour because obviously we remember mistakes of the past. Thank you very much. I've finished.
Councillor Abbott has raised a point of order.
When Councillor Cunningham's referring to I Construct, I presume he's referring to the development on Springfield Industrial Estate.
Madam Chairman, you chair the meeting, not.
Well, if he is, I supported that. I supported that project. He is deliberately trying to make out as if I didn't. I supported I Construct.
Madam Chairman, I didn't say Councillor Abbott didn't support I Construct. What I'm merely making the point is that actually when investments take place in certain localities, they have benefits for a wider area, and also they generate revenues to pay for the council. That is important. Madam Chairman, this is getting very tiresome, and the public are judging Councillor Abbott and his colleagues on their pathetic attempts at distraction away from the substantive issues of which they have no answer.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. I think that's enough from everybody. Right. And I'm now I will put the motion to the vote now.
Three councillors.
Madam Chairman, you have 3 members indicating, so we can move to a recorded vote.
Right. Yeah. Oh. Councillor Hicks has a point of order. Thank you.
Thank you. I've listened to a person who's got a very loud voice in this room this evening, and I just want to bring up 2 things.
my understanding of a chairman should be an unbiased person controlling the meeting. Also, my understanding of a point of order is that a discussion should be stopped to listen to the point of order. Tonight, I've not seen that.
I take your point. Thank you very much. Right, we'll move on to the vote now.
Okay, members, this is the vote on the motion that's been put forward. I will call out each councillor's name, and if you can clearly articulate where your vote. Councillor Abbott? Yes. Councillor Ball? For. Councillor Beavis? Yes. Councillor Bowers? For. Councillor Butland? For. Councillor Coleridge? For. Councillor Courtauld? For. Councillor Mrs Cunningham? For. Councillor Cunningham? For. Councillor Dervish? For. Councillor Euston? For. Councillor Everard? Abstain. Councillor Garrett? For. Councillor Hensman? Abstain. Councillor Hicks? Hicks. Councillor Horner? For. Councillor Kilmartin? For. Councillor Corsina? For. Councillor McCardle? For. Councillor McKee? For. Councillor Monday? Abstain. Councillor Pell? Abstain. Councillor Pritchard? For. Councillor Radley? Abstain. Councillor Raymond? For. Councillor Ritchie? For. Councillor Rose? For. Councillor Sandon? Against. Councillor Santamoro? Abstain. Councillor Scattergood? For. Councillor Swear? For. Councillor Spray? For. Councillor Tattersley? For. Councillor Thorogood? Against. Councillor Van Dulken? For. Councillor Wallace? Against. Councillor Walsh? Against. Councillor Walters? Councillor Weeks? Against. Councillor White? For. Councillor Wilson? For. Councillor Wrench? For. Councillor Wright? Against. Thank you, Councillor, for those.
I think I'm going to have to come in. The motion has been approved. The motion has been approved. Thank you, members. We'll now deal with agenda item number 7, the Sailings Neighbourhood Plan. Members, this item is set out on page 7 to 86 of the agenda. And can I invite Councillor Mrs Spray, the Cabinet Member for Planning and Infrastructure. Oh, I was going to invite you to come to the table.
I'm already here, Chair.
Thank you. To introduce the report and move the recommendation. Please can I remind you that before you make your speech, your recommendation must be moved and seconded.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Good evening, members. A little change of pace now. I'm very pleased to make the recommendation set out on page 7 of your agenda under point 2.1 that the decision statement attached at Appendix 1 is approved and the Sailings Neighbourhood Plan made under Section 38A bracket 4 close bracket of the 2004 Act. I so move, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Spray has moved the recommendation as set out on page 7 of the agenda. Please can I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Euston. Do you wish to reserve your right to speak?
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to speak as soon as Councillor Spray has finished. Thank you.
Okay. I would now like to invite Councillor Mrs Spray to speak on this matter.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Members, this neighbourhood plan was genuinely a real pleasure to read, and I hope that members found the time to have a look at it. In particular, the sections on heritage and natural environment are so descriptive. I read the report one afternoon last week, and actually it honestly made me want to get in my car, drive to the Sailings and go for a walk along the lovely country lanes. And I might have done just that if I hadn't had a meeting to go to. So let me first congratulate the Neighbourhood Plan Group who were responsible for producing this plan, because it is excellent. As with other neighbourhood plans, I know how much work goes into this document and how long it takes to get to this final stage. This one started with an event in the Millennium Village Hall in Great Sailing on October the 29th, 2016, almost exactly 5 years ago. And there followed resident surveys, business surveys, information stalls at various events, assessments and studies. The neighbourhood area was designated on the 6th of February 2017, and an independent examiner was appointed to review the plan, and he agreed that it did indeed meet the necessary basic conditions and could proceed to referendum. That referendum was held on the 16th of September this year, when 85% of those who voted in favour of the neighbourhood plan. 89 votes were cast in favour and just 16 against. The Sailings has a strong rural character, and I'll just quote briefly from the plan. The Sailings have a strongly undeveloped rural character. There is an extensive network of winding lanes, ancient byways, and paths with mature trees and hedgerows, which all provide a strong sense of historic continuity, integrity, and cultural value. Sounds lovely, doesn't it? And it is. There are over 60 listed buildings in the Sailings. That's really quite impressive. What does become evident reading the plan is how the residents feel about their area. Over 90% want to protect the historic and natural environment of the Sailings. And I'll just finish, Madam Chairman, by reading the vision for the Sailings. Our vision for the Sailings is for a safe, friendly, tranquil community with a village feel, which conserves our historic buildings and natural habitats, particularly our wildlife and woodlands, and with easy access to the open countryside. So, Chairman and members, I have absolutely no hesitation in making this recommendation to you that the Sailings neighbourhood plan should be made. Thank you, Chairman.
I'm happy to second this item and will keep my comments brief in view of the advancing hour. The Sailings is a small rural parish comprising the villages of Great Sailing and Bardfield Sailing, with just under 500 residents in total. That's about 20 more than in the 2011 census. So not a great place for growth. But there are no facilities, no school, no shop, no pub, no doctor's surgery. But what there is a great sense of community and a passion for its environment. This is an excellent document. It's the result of a huge amount of work by a dedicated team of people and covers every aspect of life in the village, past, present, and future. It's detailed, factual, and very thorough. An excellent example of neighbourhood plans, and I commend it to you all. It also demonstrates the passion from the parish, for the parish from within it. I have no hesitation in supporting this document, and I hope you will all support it too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Euston. Do any other members wish to speak at all? Nope. Councillor Mrs. Spray, as the proposer of the recommendation, would you like to reply to any speeches?
No, thank you, Madam Chairman. Councillor Euston summed up very nicely. Thank you.
Councillor Mrs. Spray, as the proposer of the recommendation. Right, okay. Thank you, members. The recommendation is set out on page 7 of the agenda has been moved and seconded. You're not going to do it. No. Right. All those in favour, please indicate. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. The recommendation has been approved. Thank you, members. We will now deal with item number 8, Planning Committee, to approve a change to the membership for the Green and Independent Group. Members, this item has been set out on pages 87 to 88 of the agenda. Please can I invite Councillor Butland, Leader of the Council, to introduce the report and move the recommendations. Please can I remind you that before you make your speech and your recommendations, it must be seconded.
Seconded, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Butland has moved the recommendation as set out on page 87 of the agenda. Please can I have a seconder, which I've had. Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. Do you wish to reserve your right to speak?
Reserve right, thank you.
Thank you. I would now like to invite Councillor Butland to speak on this matter.
Madam Chairman, I merely ask Council to approve the change to the Planning Committee, which has been done at the request of the Leader of the Green and Independent Group, to replace Councillor Nick Unsworth with Councillor Mrs Jo Beavis as one of their representatives on the Planning Committee, which is dealt with under the Witham rules. I so move.
Do any members wish to speak on this item? No. Councillor Abbott, as Leader of the Green and Independent Group, would you like to speak first on the changes being put forward? No. As seconder, would you like to speak?
Nothing to add, thank you.
No. All right. Yep. So we'll go straight to the vote. Which is, thank you. Can I have a show of hands, please? You know. Right. It's been approved. The recommendation has been approved. Thank you, members. We'll now deal with item 9, contract award for the provision of insurance services. Members, this item is set out on pages 89 to 91 of the agenda and is for noting only. Pardon? Right. Please can I invite Councillor Butland, Leader of the Council, to introduce the report.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Very briefly, we don't have many of these special urgency provisions come to us, which I'm pleased to say. It does set out in paragraph 3 the reasons why on this occasion it was necessary for officers to seek my consent to enter into revised arrangements regarding the award of contracts for the provision of insurance services. They have gone, and I'm satisfied with the papers I saw, etc., quite rightly following a procurement exercise for combined liability insurance to travellers, motor insurance to protector, and fidelity guarantee to Zurich Municipal. This really is so that there is a final audit trail which is backed up by the individual papers that were given to me. I therefore move the recommendation that Council note the decision taken by me regarding the insurance provisions of the Council. I so move.
Do any members wish to speak on this motion? Nope. Thank you, Councillor Butland. Members, as I have advised, this report is for noting. Please can I take it that this report is noted? Thank you, members. We will now deal with agenda item number 10, Cabinet Report to Full Council. Right, and we don't actually, I draw your attention to the fact we have very little time, less than half an hour. So say what you have to say, but be as brief as possible, please. Right, before opening this item, I remind members that they may put up to 2 questions to the Cabinet, which will be responded to by the Leader or the relevant cabinet member. Councillor Abbott, as the leader of the opposition, may put up to 4 questions to the cabinet. Members may not ask supplementary questions. Questions should relate to the functions of the leader or a cabinet member, the powers and duties of the council, or matters pertaining to the district. No statements may be made by councillors during this session. Where a response cannot be given during the meeting, a written answer will be issued within 10 working days of the meeting and circulated to all members. Members, whilst we would normally have a period of 1 hour for this item, you've got less than half an hour. So we only, well, there's probably 25 minutes left, I'm afraid. So if you could be as brief as possible. Thank you. Councillor Butland, as leader of the council, would you like to give your report?
I won't add anything, Madam Chairman, to the report, but could I seek your indulgence that Councillor Bowers could address Council on the issue of Afghan refugees, which I know a number of members of the council, well, all members of the council, but certainly some members have a particular interest in.
Yes, and I think we'll actually do that now. Councillor Bowers.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you for allowing me to update members regarding the council's latest position regarding the Afghan resettlement schemes previously announced by the government and of which previous communication has been circulated. As members will be aware, there are 2 schemes that were announced: the ARAP scheme, the Afghan Relocations and Assistance Policy, which was communicated to the council on the 3rd of June 2021, and then the ACRS, the Afghan Citizens Resettlement Scheme, which was communicated on the 13th of September 2021. These schemes are part of Operation Warm Welcome, which is a cross-government initiative to ensure the Afghans are supported as they now rebuild their lives in the UK. As part of the 2 schemes, the council has been able to assess two two-bedroom properties in the district, and these have been sent to Essex County Council, who are leading on this, for them to be considered. BDC do not choose what scheme these are for, as this process is managed by Essex County Council and other partners. To date, we have not received matches for these properties. There are 2 further properties that we are aware of that may be put forward from local charities and community groups, though timescales for this are not confirmed at present. Just to remind everyone, we do not own or hold housing stock as a district council, and we have a very limited supply of affordable housing. We will continue to work with Essex County Council to look at opportunities to find suitable properties that can be put forward to support the schemes. We are in regular contact with government to understand how the schemes will operate at a practical level and to understand the financial implications of the schemes on individuals and authorities. We will focus our efforts on working with local groups and private sector landlords to identify potential properties that could be used to support refugees, with an aim to support the programme where we can, without significantly impacting those who are already high priority on our housing register. This is an important programme, and as a district, we want to support it. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bowers. Councillor Ritchie. Oh, sorry, I didn't see your hand. Sorry, Councillor Walsh.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman, and thanks to Councillor Bowers. Very briefly, and there is a question here, suggestion. I do indeed appreciate the constructive response to the Witham question that I submitted with Councillors Abbott, Beavis and Mann, and also the update, including via Andy Wright, on what the council has been doing, and your remarks this evening, Councillor Bowers. As we know, given the pressures on social housing and that the needs of refugees extend well beyond housing to, for example, language, cultural and employment issues, you asked in your response to be informed of any individuals or groups who might help. I'm just wondering, would you be interested to be kept in touch with an Essex group that was started via the Church of England several years ago and has already helped 60 refugees from several countries? I'm going to meet the new senior vicar in Coggeshall who started that group. I'm a member of the congregation there, and she's very keen, Heike Prentice, she's very keen to explore any feasible support alongside Braintree Council's effort.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh. Yes, I'd be very much like to have some more details on that. So if you can send it through, then we can put that into the mix and hopefully we can work together. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Bowers. Councillor Ritchie? No?
No, Councillor Abbott, Madam Chairman.
I can't keep missing the hands. Can you put them up really high? Thank you. Yeah, I've got it.
Thank you. I did have 4 questions, but as Councillor Schmidt's not here, you'll be glad to know I've got 3. Could I have the answers in turn, please? My first question is to Councillor Tom Cunningham. Can he say, please, whether the refresh of the Plan for Growth will fully take on board the Essex Climate Action Commission's Net Zero reports, the Braintree District Council's climate strategy and the Braintree District Council's cycling strategy, so that growth and new jobs in the district can be as green as possible?
I can give him an undertaking that those documents will all be part of the considerations as we refresh the economic plan for growth.
Thank you. My second question is to Councillor Tattersley. On page 100 of Councillor Bowers' report, it states that the new surgery space in Braintree Town Centre is being enthusiastically looked at by the NHS for GPs to move into. And on the planning committee of the 28th of September, a report was presented to members, which on page 15 stated that the CCG and Mid and South Essex HCP requested contributions for Section 106 agreements attached to any grant of planning permission, and indeed they do routinely on planning applications, to mitigate the housing development in this case. Otherwise, it would impose an unsustainable burden on local healthcare services. In that context, would he like to withdraw the comment he made to all members, which I believe was aimed at myself and a few others, that we were naive and simplistic for wanting extra GP space in Silver End Surgery and elsewhere?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It's a good job I'm not as thin-skinned as some of the other members in this in this chamber. I think that Councillor Abbott likes to dish it out, but he finds it very difficult to take any criticism himself. And the point that I want to make about it is that we have covered this point about health facilities in Silver End and Witham area. The council, as outlined by Councillor Butland in an email that is sent to every member, we do hold substantial resources for new health facilities in Silver End and Witham. And as soon as these resources are requested by the National Health Service, they will be provided. The resources, the NHS will not be asking for new health facilities unless it's in a position to fill them with doctors, nurses, and other health professionals. Otherwise, any buildings that are provided will be left empty and rapidly deteriorate. And to suggest otherwise really is simplistic and naive.
My third question is to Councillor Spray. On page 99 of Wendy Schmidt's report, she mentions 2 sites in Halstead where she refers to wonderful mature trees and wildlife habitat. Is Councillor Spray aware, and I'll preface this by saying, before the Conservatives jump up and down, I'm not against new housing, and indeed the Witham and Villages area are taking thousands of new houses. Is she aware of the utter devastation on the Jimson site in Witham, which this council had an involvement in, because it negotiated with the applicant about the access, which has resulted in the removal of nearly all of the mature trees, including round the periphery of the site? Why, under her watch, is this continuing to happen on site after site?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. A little bit of background, as I strongly suspected this question was coming up tonight. So this site, Gimson's, was allocated for housing in the draft local plan, having undergone considerable scrutiny by the local plan subcommittee. So it wasn't a speculative development, it's an allocated site. And the resultant application for 78 dwellings was granted in 2020 by the Planning Committee, following a very thorough presentation by our planning officer and discussion by the committee. Witham Town Council, and there's a reason for me saying this, Madam Chairman, then applied to the High Court for permission to apply to the Secretary of State for a judicial review, and this was refused. The Town Council then appealed that decision and tried again, and again this was refused by a different judge. Now, in both cases, the judges clearly stated that there were no grounds for a review of the planning decision reached by this council and by the planning committee. Now, the reason I'm going over a little of this site history, Chairman, is to assure members that the site is being developed in line with the planning permission that has been issued by this authority. And following the granting of that planning permission, an arboricultural method statement, which contained a very detailed tree protection plan, was produced and approved. There's also a hard and soft landscaping plan, which shows where the retained trees are situated and also where further landscaping will be incorporated, especially along the boundary with the playing fields and the adjacent River Walk area. Now, as part of the original planning application, and members can look it up, there is a section headed Impact on Vegetation. It's on pages 24 and 25 of that committee report. And it provides more information on the trees to be retained and how they are to be protected. Now, it's quite true, and it's in the committee report, that one group of Lombardy poplars, subject to a preservation order, are to be removed. They're located fairly centrally on the site. And I'm going to quote from the report here. The poplars are tall trees, however, they are a short-lived tree, rarely exceeding 60 years, prone to canker and branch drop, and as such are not appropriate to be retained in a future residential development where they will inevitably cause requests for reduction or removal. And the report goes on to say that a number of defects were identified within these trees. And in view of this, the landscape officer considered their loss to be acceptable and necessary for any residential development at the site. And he went on to say all other trees and vegetation proposed to be removed are either of moderate or low quality and would not be protected status. It is considered the development would not involve the felling of any high quality trees or woodland, and the landscape officer has no objections to all of the tree works proposed. It's just worth noting also, Chairman and members, if you are a private landowner or developer, and in this case it's Bellway, you are able to cut down trees that you own as long as they are not subject to any TPOs. In fact, you could clear an entire site of unprotected trees before a planning application was even submitted, and a planning authority could not do anything about it. Now, I'm not saying we as the local authority would like to see that and want that to happen. In fact, we wouldn't. But in planning terms, that's allowed. And in this authority, we continue to work with developers to ensure tree and hedge losses are minimised and that as many opportunities as possible are identified for new planting as part of new developments. And just finally, Madam Chairman, I think before anyone is too critical of this council's decision on trees and vegetation, it was the Green Party controlled Brighton Council that earlier this year cut down a stretch of Europe's oldest and longest green living wall. It was planted by the Victorians, actually, and it's classified as a local wildlife site, and a large chunk of it was taken down. Now, it was, of course, a mistake, but probably not that council's finest hour. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Spray. Does anyone else have any more?
Madam Chairman, I think Councillor Beavis indicated a question.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you. Two quick questions, and I'm happy to have a written response for both. The first one, I think, is to Councillor Rickey. October is Black History Month, and Essex is celebrating by a range of activities, including from Anglia Ruskin University, Tendering District Council, Harlow Cultural Events, and Essex Radio. What events are BDC supporting for our BAME community? And my second question, I think, is to Councillor McKee.
and it's delivered in the spirit of local levelling up. Could the Cabinet member please write to me and explain to Castle Hedingham Parish Council, who's meeting this evening, who is leading on the new park land sale, and what proportion of this sale and capital receipt to the council will benefit the Hedinghams, which I represent? Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Beavers.
Madam Chairman, if you would like to invite Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Beavers, for your question. I'm not sure if we have got anything planned. I'm pretty sure that we have, because it would be remiss of us not to celebrate our rich and diverse cultures. I will, of course, write to you with any plans that we've got in place. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chairman, Councillor McKee to respond on the other question.
I'd like to make the same response. Thank you for your question. I'll make a written response.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. My question is directed to Councillor Wendy Schmidt. It's a specific question. I'm very happy to have a written response. It's intended as entirely constructive. Given the Council's recent adoption with unanimous support of the climate change strategy, I'd be grateful if I could please get an update on the analysis, and are there any further plans of action based on the direct air quality monitoring that Councillor Smith mentioned in answer to a question at the extraordinary full council meeting. Secondly, I noticed no air quality management areas were declared in our district in 2019 based on the recent 2020 report. Have any been declared since? And is there an action plan? Did Braintree District apply for the government grant to measure particulates, which Councillor Unsworth mentioned to the council, where there was government funding available, which closed, I believe, on the 8th of October? Finally, as I think many fellow councillors here will be aware, it was very recently reported in the Essex Standard and Chronicle that Colchester reports 1 in 20 of all deaths were based on vehicle-related air pollution. They've designated 3 air quality management areas and have also used fundings for a 2-year Clean Air for Colchester campaign. So I'm just wondering if Braintree are considering any similar plans, or may I ask if we are prepared to consider this sort of initiative, given the extent of road traffic growth and housing development up to 2023 in our local plan?
Thank you, Councillor Walsh. Councillor Smith, as you know, is not here tonight. You wish to answer, Councillor Hunt?
Yes, if I may. If Councillor Smith was here, she would answer some of those. It is active consideration, and we will be making announcements as we move forward in the budget process for 2022-23. So there is news to follow. Watch this space.
Thank you. Councillor Everard.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. A question for Councillor Ritchie. Does the Cabinet Member for Communities agree that we are in an alarming situation in regards to the current lack of venues to accommodate our large number of performing arts groups in Braintree? We have nothing that fits the bill. Given that we have just lost the use of Braintree Arts Theatre at Notley High School, recently lost Braintree College Theatre due to demolition, and of course we gave our cherished institute to an antiques operation. I did try to get a group together to take that on, but there we are. Our citizens are devastated and angry, and that we are in this dire situation. This loss affects the young and all ages, amateur performers, devoted audiences, and professional acts. Performing arts is a worthy activity, providing a great mental health benefit. We must encourage our youth to identify with a worthwhile activity, an important element to our culture. I appreciate that the loss of the Braintree Arts Theatre was because of an amalgamation of 2 academies, but I ask if BDC actually put some money into the joint venture, and can we in any way hold them to any agreement that there might have been, and furthermore, any agreement that there might have been. And furthermore, can I ask what the Cabinet member, what will he do to rectify this situation? I'm a little bit dry.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Of course, it is unfortunate when some of these establishments do close, and if they're private venues, then sometimes we do have little influence as to how we can affect that. With regards to the Performing Arts Centre at Notley High, we are in communication with the owners there. We are keeping it under constant review, and we will obviously keep members updated. I'm also thankful to my Cabinet colleague and leader, Councillor Butland, who's also looking into some of that as part of his Essex County Council portfolio responsibilities. And like I said, as we have an update, I will update all members on that. Thank you, Councillor Everard.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any more questions? No? Brilliant, you've done it. Okay. As there's no further business items on the agenda, this concludes our business for the meeting of the full council. Before closing the meeting, please can I remind members that the next meeting full council will be held on the 13th of December. The webcast of this meeting will be published on the council's YouTube channel as soon as possible. Please remain seated until your row has been invited to leave by the governance officers. I would be grateful if you could vacate the theatre promptly so that the officers can clear the venue as quickly and as safely as possible. Members, if you have any feedback following this evening's meeting, please can you provide this directly to Emma Wisby or Kim Cole, who can consider it for future council meetings. Thank you very much for coming and for your participation this evening. And I close the meeting at 10:10. Hello,
Obviously, the staff had so we are representing members of the central car to use the corridor. We're just going to get corridors to open the corridor so you can safely go through the building and inspect your vehicle. So we don't have to have any further call. We can have the call. Thank you.
Well, you know why? It's time to drop my last one out.